You ever move somewhere thinking you've finally outrun the noise, only to find a new kind of storm waiting for you? That was me, just trying to retire in peace at Willow Ridge Lake. 22 years in the Navy as an engineer, a decade teaching high school physics, plenty of time and systems, rules, and headaches, you know? All I wanted was quiet, maybe a few sunrises over the water, coffee steaming in my hand, my old dog Briscoe snoring at my feet. The place wasn't flashy, a little weathered cottage, wraparound porch, the kind of spot where time drifts slow and honest. But it was mine. And the dock was my kingdom. 25 feet of faded wood sticking out over the water, built before the HOA was even a rumor. For years, nobody cared what I did out there. I'd fish with my granddaughter Ellie, fix up the boards, just let the day roll by. The HOA, they were too busy fussing about mailbox heights or Halloween decorations. Then Karen Delaney moved and down the road, clipboard glued to her hand, Bluetooth earpiece like a badge, the kind of neighbor who could weaponize a smile. Within a month, she'd muscled her way into the HOA president seat. I didn't vote. Never did. That one's on me. She started slow. Letters about curb appeal, recycling bins, all the usual HOA dance. I ignored it. My deed was ironclad lake access, dock rights, everything double-checked when I bought the place. Or so I thought. One morning in April, I spot a white SUV idling by my drive. Briscoe barked, then went back to sleep. But I felt eyes on made paranoia, maybe Navy instincts. Days later, a letter arrived from the so-called Architectural Review Committee. Suddenly, my dock was encroaching on HOA land, and I was supposed to beg for permission or get fined for a structure that's older than half the houses out here. You know what I mean? I crumpled it, tossed it. But Karen didn't back off. She started strolling by, snapping photos, staring from across the lake sometimes 20 minutes straight. I'd be sanding down the rail, pretending I didn't see her, letting her know I wasn't rattled. Emails started piling up. Dear Mr. Chandler, thank you for your cooperation as we ensure community compliance. Shared space, she called it. My foot. The dock was well within my line, verified by 2 county surveys and grandfathered in from 1982. But Karen wasn't interested in facts. She was after control. One afternoon, I catch her standing right on my dock, past the locked gate. I yell, "Excuse me, that's private property." She hits me with her plastic smile. "I'm just conducting a compliance review." I tell her to get off. She backs away, but not before taking another picture. That night, I call my lawyer in the county. Time to get ahead of this. I dug out every document, deed copies, old surveys, notarized letters from the previous owner, photographs, the whole 9 yards. I scanned everything, made backups. Karen had poked the wrong bear. I wasn't scared, not even angry, just focused. She wanted a soft target. I was about to teach her otherwise. For a few days, nothing happened. I kept busy tightening bolts on the dock, checking the water line, repainting the rail. Then one morning, there she was, Karen in her wedge heels, out on my dock filming the whole thing, her white blouse snapping in the breeze. I walked right down. "You're trespassing." She smirked. "Just collecting evidence for the board." I pulled my phone and filmed her right back. The flicker in her eyes, she didn't expect that. She left in a hurry. That night, I filed a trespassing report with the sheriff. Not because I thought they'd do much, but because paper trails matter. Then came the official HOA, letters bold, passive-aggressive masterpieces, threatening fines, removal, you name it. I brought all the paperwork to Jim, my lawyer. He just grinned. "She's fishing. Don't blink." We drafted a cease and desist, sent it to Karen personally. 2 days later, a new shoreline subcommittee popped up. Chairwoman, Karen. Comic Sans logo, but the threat was real. They wanted me to stop using my dock while they conducted a fake impact study. I installed motion sensors and a security cam. Sure enough, there she was at dawn a few days later, planting a sign under my dock. Pending review. "Do not use HOA property." I snatched it up and waved it at her, but she just sped off. That was the breaking point. I started sharing my evidence with neighbors. Door-to-door folders with maps, surveys, photos, and a cover letter in plain English. Most folks were shocked. Greg Morales, who worked for the Water District, shook my hand and said he'd seen HOA bullies before but never expected it here. Suddenly, my phone was lighting up with support. People shared their own run-ins with Karen Blue tarps, therapy swings, American flags, all fined or threatened. Then the county land office showed up. 2 men in khakis checked my markers, double-checked the surveys, handed me a stamped verification letter on the spot. My dock was fully legal. I made copies for every neighbor and mailed one to the HOA. Karen, undeterred, kept trying to paint me as the villain posting HOA bulletins about escalating disputes. So, I went to the local news. The story aired, 3 minutes of truth. Karen refused to speak on camera. Next day, a board member resigned, apologizing for not standing up sooner. It all came to a head when Karen, flustered and desperate, accidentally let her SUV roll right off my dock into the lake while she was busy filming. The whole thing caught on security cam. She blamed me, but the sheriff, the tow crew, the neighbors, they all saw the truth. The dock survived, the SUV didn't, and suddenly Karen wasn't so untouchable. Support rolled in. Neighbors brought meals, thanked me for standing up. The HOA board finally met. Without Karen, she resigned. Personal stress and legal exposure. The new leadership suspended every shoreline enforcement until a full bylaw review. They even asked me to help write the new rules. I said yes, but only if everything stayed above board, no closed doors, no unchecked power. The quiet that settled over Willow Ridge felt earned. People painted shutters whatever color they wanted, raised flags, built play sets, laughed out loud again. I'd walk down to the dock, sit with Briscoe, and for the first time in years, feel the kind of peace you only get by standing your ground. It wasn't about revenge. It was about showing that when you shine a little sunlight, the mold can't survive. And you know, the fight didn't just save my dock. It reminded the whole neighborhood we're stronger when we stick together. So here's what I'll ask. What would you have done? Stand up, keep quiet, or something in between? Drop your thoughts below. Tell me about your own battles, your wins, your standoffs. Let's talk about what justice really means in a community. Because sometimes all it takes is one stubborn neighbor and a good dog to make everyone remember peace is worth fighting for. Yeah, you'd think after the whole SUV in the lake fiasco, things might finally settle down, that I'd just go back to quiet mornings on my dock, coffee in hand, watching the sun climb through the mist like nothing ever happened. But if you've ever dealt with someone like Karen or an HOA in general, you know they don't always let go that easy. Sure, Karen resigned. Her car was towed out, dripping mud and algae. And for a couple weeks, peace did return to Willow Ridge Lake. Neighbors smiled again, started planting flowers, painting shutters wild colors, like we were reclaiming the place inch by inch. But in the background, I could feel unfinished business humming, like the faint sound of thunder way off over the water. 2 weeks after her big splash, a certified letter showed up from Karen's attorney, thin and sour as a lemon. She was blaming me for her own disaster, claiming the dock was unsafe, that I'd failed to keep her out, and if I didn't pay half a repair bill, 14 grand. If you can believe, itched see me in court. I read that letter 3 times, each slower than the last. Part of me wanted to laugh, the other part just shook my head. I handed everything off to Jim, my lawyer. He called back in 5 minutes, didn't even bother to sugarcoat it. She has no case, Chandler. We've got video, witness statements, timestamps, report shell. She'd have to convince a judge the sky's not blue. Still, Jim asked if I wanted to counter. And you know, after all the months of bullying, I did. I was done letting people like Karen twist the story, make the truth slippery, make neighbors afraid to speak up. So we filed harassment, defamation, emotional distress, the whole stack of fines and threats she'd piled on me. Small claims court, just enough to make a point. When the day came, I figured it'd be a lonely battle. But as I walked into that county courthouse, I saw half the neighborhood sitting in the back, arms folded, nodding to me like we were all on the same team now. Greg Morales was there, the Browns, even Carly holding her baby. Karen sat 2 rows ahead with a lawyer who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. When it was my turn, I just told the truth. About the dock, the history, the fake committees, and the endless letters. About the morning the SUV found its way into the lake caught on camera for anyone who cared to look. The judge was sharp-eyed and quiet, but when it was Karen's turn to respond, her story crumbled. Her lawyer tried to claim confusion, unclear boundaries, even community stress, but every accusation met a photo, a document, a county map, a neighbor ready to nod along. The judge ruled fast, $8,000 in damages to me, a formal rebuke of the HOA's behavior, and an order for Willow Ridge to revise its bylaws and submit to outside review. Did I feel triumphant? Not really. Mostly just relieved. I went home that evening and sat on the end of my dock, Briscoe's chin resting on my boot, the sun sinking gold behind the trees. A neighbor dropped by with a thank you note, signed by everyone on Shoreline Lane, and I pinned it to the wall above my workbench, just a reminder that sometimes standing up isn't just about you. It's about everyone tired of living in someone else's shadow. Things changed after that. People started showing up at the dock sometimes with coffee, sometimes just to chat. The Browns painted their shutters yellow. Carly's son finally got his therapy swing. Even Malcolm, the old Marine with a limp, raised his flag on a new pole twice as tall as the old one. The dock became more than a place to fish. It was a symbol, something solid that couldn't be pushed around by threats or rules scribbled in Comic Sans. I was asked to chair the new advisory committee in one condition. No closed meetings, no hidden agendas. Every rule put to a community vote. They agreed. At the first outdoor meeting, I stood up and said, "We've all seen what happens when one voice gets too loud. Let's make sure the next person who tries to push us around has to answer to a wall of neighbors, not just one stubborn old man and his dog." Folks clapped not loud, but genuine. I heard through the grapevine Karen sold her house and slipped out of Willow Ridge one night. No goodbyes, just gone. Part of me wondered what made someone need that much control, what she was really running from, but maybe that's not mine to solve. Justice didn't come from revenge, it came from consequences, from community, from exposure. And in the end, it was quieter than I expected, the way fog clears from the lake at dawn. One day, Ellie ran down the dock with her fishing rod. "Grandpa, you fixed it," she shouted, and I laughed. "It was never really broken, sweetheart. It just got noisy for a while." She sat swinging her legs on the new bench I'd bolted down at the dock's end, a plaque underneath for all who stood up for peace, for truth, and for the right to belong. So that's where I am, these days, morning sun warming my face, Briscoe curled up beside me, neighbors waving from their porches, the lake still and shining, but alive with voices again. I look out across the water, and for the first time in a long while, I feel like I belong. And if anyone asks, I'll tell them peace isn't the absence of noise. It's what you get when you stand up, speak out, and remind everyone what community is really supposed to mean. But tell me, if it were your dock, your neighborhood, would you have done the same? Drop a comment below. I want to hear your story. Because the only way things change is when enough people decide it's time to stand together.